My name is Lila May Lund Orme, and I was born on May 1st, 1926 in East Los Angeles.
I was born in East LA.
My folks were from Idaho. Mom and Dad were both born in Utah and moved to Idaho. And they had a farm disaster, the weather, or whatever you call it. So they moved down to California, and they went to a place that was for people that really didn't have where to go. They called it Hooverville, I think. And it was over in East LA. This was, well, Shirley was born in California, so she was born in 21, no, Joanne, 21, 20.
So it's in the 20s or?
24. She
24?
was born 24.
Okay, so early 1920s. Okay.
My dad was a farmer. He used to help Mama's Grandpa Robinson's farm up in Idaho. They had a dry farm and a whole bunch of men there, but everything kind of fell apart. Grandpa just left the equipment there and came to California. My dad became a welder. He put mantles on fireplaces, or he put this what we would call formica, but it was more like a marble.
Mm-hmm.
He put that on things and became a riveter. That big water pipe that you see out of the valley over there in San Fernando Valley that carries water from somewhere, he put that together. And eventually a policeman for Los Angeles Police Department. He barely could make it. He was only, I think, 5'7". He wasn't, and he had to eat a whole bunch of malts and things to try to put on weight. But he became a policeman, and he was a policeman for 25 years when they retired him. Then he became a butcher. My very first memory is my first home and my sister teaching me the Lord's Prayer. I can remember kneeling down and she'd say it and then I'd say it. That was Joanne, my sister Joanne. That's my first memory.
So what was your childhood like?
It was in the Depression. It was in 1926, and things were pretty hard to come by. The fact that my father was a policeman, he used to stop at a bakery and they would give him day-old things to bring home. I can remember having dinner with nothing but a bowl of cold canned tomatoes, which I never did learn to like. Yeah, it was pretty bad. He worked nights, and so I had to stay out of the house during the day. I had a girlfriend down the street, and we were very close. Her mother used to be an alcoholic, or was an alcoholic, and we'd sometimes find her on the kitchen floor. And so we just would stay there, and we made sandwiches out of white bread with mayonnaise and slices of raw onions. And I still eat a raw onion sandwich every once in a while. I love them. I can remember one at that same street, at 106th Street. I used to babysit. I babysit the girl that was older than I was, but we slept together at night for when her folks would come home, then I'd go home. But one time it was a New Year's Eve and I was babysitting a Jewish family. Now, I don't know about Christmas, but anyway, they had some vodka or some liquor, and I tasted it. So I can't ever say that I didn't have any alcohol. It's like first cigarette. I never had a real cigarette, but my first cigarette was a whole home-rolled one when I was a kid. My cousin Dean and I tore up a piece of newspaper, put some weeds inside of it and rolled it and tried to smoke it. Almost blew up our hair. So don't try to smoke. We didn't have videos. We didn't have cell phones. We went to the movie, and they cost 10 cents. And my mom would send us to the movie to get us out of the house. And we'd walk down and see Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. And then eventually Tom Mix and Tim McCoy, and then some of those early guys. In the neighborhood, Kick the Can, Run Sheep Run. We could get out in the street and play a baseball game maybe. Jacks, played a lot of jacks. Jump rope. And grammar school. Well, we'll go back to grammar school because I remember that. I became the room monitor.
Nerd alert!
Don't know if they have them now, but in those days, we didn't take our own pencils and paper. We'd go to school, and then they had what they called a stock room, and I'd get what we needed each morning and go to the stock room and get the stuff and take it back to the class. Got to be a pet of the school principal, so he let me ring the bell. So I got to ring the bell. Had a boyfriend and that. I mean, I liked the guy.
Tell us that. Tell us all about your boyfriend.
I think his name was George. Anyway, I really didn't like boys very well until I was in, high school. I was too athletic. I have a ribbon or two in there that I won when I was in this Figueroa Street school, this first school. Growing up was cold cereal. I still like it. But now I think one of my favorite meals is pizza or spaghetti. I like both of them a lot. Mexican food I like. Tacos, enchiladas. My dad got Marie, my sister, a little dog, and it turned out to be a coyote, I think, or a relative of a coyote, over there on Toppin Street. As a kid, I can't remember. Well, we had canaries. My dad raised canaries. That's a bird. And he made to me it was a big cage. Had about maybe 10 or 15 birds in it. I think he might have sold them. But we used to have a canary in our home over on Itawanda. I like animals. The kids have had rabbits, and they've had dogs, and they've had a snake. And one of my pets was what was called crab. It has a little shell. And I had one that Marie gave me, my sister gave me, and I watched it change shells several times, and it's really interesting because they have this shell that's probably about an inch or so big, but when they crawl out of it, they look like a mosquito. They're so tiny. And I remember once trying to help it with a pen, probably broke off his leg or his claw or something. Anyway, I had several of those. So, other than that, I personally, I had some fish, little goldfish. I love school. I wasn't smart, and I always thought I was an introvert because I didn't have self-confidence. One of my closest friends was from Germany, and we went to the Canoga Park High School the same day, which was maybe a week after everybody else had started. And so after the bell rang, we both just sat there. We didn't know exactly where to go or what to do. So I said, shall we go have lunch together? And we were together from then on. She was my maid of honor at our wedding. She married the man who gave me my first kiss in college. Oh, I had a real famous game in college. I was tall.
What college was this?
This was up at the University of Utah when I was nursing. And we played men's rules, a full court. Up to that time, girls played in a third of a court in high school and stuff. We played full court in college, and we became pretty good. But this one game, I was guard, and I got the ball when the other team was throwing it, and I ran down and made a pitch for a basket, and they were screaming and everything. I was all by myself. But the reason was the rest of them were in shock because I was heading for the wrong basket. So that's my accomplishments. Anyway, brings back lots of things.
What were your favorite memories of your parents?
Daddy was my favorite because I was the boy of the family. And I did the mowing, and I learned to cut a hedge better than him. I was outside doing yard work while Shirley and Joanne were in cooking because they were homemaking girls. So I was the boy, and I guess my happy times were with my dad. Just doing things together. Mama, well, she was the strict one. She was the one that we had to mind, because I guess Daddy, I can't remember him ever telling us what to do. And Mama was trying to teach us. We used to argue. We'd start arguing when we had supper. I get to wipe the dishes. No, I get to wipe, and you have to wash. No, I want to wash. You wipe, or whatever. And we'd fight, and pretty soon my mother would say, "Oh, HEWQ, I'll do it." So we didn't do too well. No, I think I was the youngest before Marie was born, and she came 10 years later, so I was the youngest, and then I got teased a lot, I think. I used to walk to school, and I was walking in front of my sister Shirley, and she'd make fun of how I walked, and I'd turn around and I'd make fun of her nose because it was a little bit different than ours. Awful, awful memories. Those aren't happy memories. Happy memories are, I guess, just going to church. Doing things together. We used to go to the beach when we were young. Went down to Manhattan Beach. The neighbor across the street of us, Mrs. Muir, had a daughter that was my friend and a son. But she used to drive us down to Manhattan Beach. And we used to go out in the waves. We didn't have to worry about sharks then. I guess nowadays you have to worry about sharks. But we'd go out past the breakers and just ride the swells. It was fun.
What were your experiences with the war?
Well, we had to have little green stamp books that we would pull out, and we'd use that when we wanted to get meat or other things.
These are for rations?
Yes, the rationing. I was kind of young, so I don't think I did to the store very much at that time. We used to save the foil off of our gum. We used to save tin cans. I can remember straightening nails for my dad so that he could reuse them. Lisa, my friend Elizabeth, she went by Lisa, was always embarrassed because she was German. She thought people hated her because we were with war with them. But I had a happy year. I had happy school. I liked school. And I became girls' leagues president, so that's all right.
What is Girls League's president? What is that?
That was they grouped the girls together and they called them the Girls League. It was just all the girls in the school, and the boys had a boys league, and then they had a president or both of them. Because I got Girls League president, and I ran for the president of the whole school, and I didn't make it. But I can remember. How did I meet Verl, my husband?
Yes.
Well, that was a set-up marriage, because I was up in Utah with nursing, and he was down here with his brothers with the gas station. And the people in the ward down here said, you need to meet Lila. And my folks would write to me and say, you need to meet Verl. And one day, a girl from down here was up in Utah for a conference, and she met me at her apartment, and when she opened the door, she clapped her hands and she said, oh yes, you're the one for Verl. And so we were kind of matched before we met. And I came down to Utah on a holiday from nursing. I think it was a Thanksgiving holiday probably. And I went, I think Mom must have driven me over to Burbank Steakhouse where we had a steak dance. And I walked in the door and was just standing there, and Verl was dancing with Verna Wilson, and she said, oh, there's Lila. And Verl came over and introduced himself, and we danced, and he took me home. And I had been told he was a bashful guy, but he kissed me on that first night home. So anyway, that's the way we met, is at a steak dance. And he called me up the next day, and the next day, and the next day, so we got acquainted on the phone. And then he took off when I went back. He took off at Christmas time and visited me at the hospital. And we were engaged a month later, got married a couple months later.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was the best choice I ever made in my life. His patience. I think his patience saved our marriage, because I was unsure of myself. I was always trying to make excuses, I guess. I don't know what it was, but his patience with me, as well as with the kids, I think that's what, he's kind, gentle, just perfect. Just a perfect guy. He taught the kids how to fix the cars and stuff like that. I think kindness, sweet, gentleness. Oh, and he could cook and I couldn't. That helped. Like I say, I was the boy of the family, so I didn't know how to cook, and his mom and dad were sickly, so he was cooking all through his young life. And he was a good cook. I'll tell you one episode. He loved puddings, so I made a pudding for dinner, and I wanted to make some sauce to put on it. So I made the sauce and gave him this wonderful pudding with sauce for dinner, and he took a bite and he said, honey, you forgot to put the sugar in the sauce. So all it was cornstarch and water, and that doesn't taste very good. So I'm not a very good cook, so he was our cook. But I did learn somewhat. My favorite meal was putting the pot roast in the pot on Sunday morning, and vegetables, and having it all ready when we got home. When I first graduated, my first job was at Valley Hospital, taking care of a movie star's wife's baby, or his baby. as a special nurse. And then I soon went into surgery, and that was my favorite. At one time I thought I would like to help deliver babies at home, and I did. Delivered several at home. But my first job was really taking care of this movie star's Tex Ritter, his son, whoever his son was maybe his son was the baby. I helped with brain surgeries, I helped with abdominals, I helped with bones. And the last part of my nursing at Granada Hills, it was in the heart room. And I would like to go back and count how many hearts I helped. I think there's been maybe 20 to 50. I liked really being the instrument nurse, not the circulator. I'd rather be up there on the table and hand them the instruments. That was kind of fun, to anticipate what they might want. But I ended up circulating mostly for the heart room. I'll tell you one incident in nursing training, though. It was in surgery, and I don't know if I was the nurse. I don't think I was, but because it's so clear in my mind, I might have been the nurse, and the doctor didn't like what I handed him, and he threw it on the floor. So, but I liked surgery. Better, I think, than birthing babies. I had what I'm calling a spiritual, really, what do you think of when you think about something before it happens?
Premonition?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was so strong that I rounded up all my equipment and had it there, and then when she called and says, I don't know if it's labor or not, I just picked it all up and went. And when I got there, the baby was being born.
Wow.
So that was interesting.
And who was that?
That was Steve Weston, my sister Shirley's son. Verl, he and his brothers own a gas station. And he was out on a call, so he couldn't take me down there when she called. We only had one car. And so his brother took me down.
Oh.
And like I say, he was right there watching all of this stuff. And Floyd was a policeman at that time, and so when he came home, and the baby was already born, but he called an ambulance and took her with a siren going to the doctor. The doctor, I think, made me sign a paper because I had cut the cord.
Oh, you cut the umbilical cord?
And I shouldn't have done that. It was fine to tie it off because it was going to be delivered. You know, the afterbirth was going to come. So it was, but I shouldn't have cut it. Even though I had put my scissors in alcohol and everything. But he made me sign a paper in case something happened, but nothing happened. The only job I knew him to have, well, before I married him, he worked in a laundry. And he and his brothers then started a gas station. And when I met him, that's what he was doing. He was working with his brother Ray and Joel. And they had a partnership. I never heard them argue. Ray took care of the business part of it. Joel took care of the mechanical part. And Verl took care of the gas part. Yeah. I just remembered something funny.
What was that? Tell us.
I don't know. I was driving the car and had a dress on, and my knees might have been showing, I don't know, but I think I pulled them down, and then I asked Verl later on, I says, does that bother you when you do windows? And he says, well, it could. I mean, from then on, I was always made sure when I went in for gasoline, I had my dress down so they couldn't see anything above my knees.
Who was the most influential person in your life?
Most probably Verl. Probably my husband influenced me. I loved my mom and dad, but I think Verl was the best example. He did everything just right. And I'm happy to say, grateful that all my kids took after him, not me. Because they're all thinking of other people and helping other people all the time.
What'd you like most about being a mom?
I don't know, when they're little and everything, you're so close together. It's my favorite prayer of Thanksgiving. I'm so grateful, number one, that I was born into an active Latter-day Saint family, and number two, for Earl and our kids.